What's up guys, Groovy Guitar Dude here with the beginner guitar tutorial for At My Worst by Pink Sweats and Kehlani. If this video helps you out, hit that like and subscribe button and let me know in the comments below what are the songs by either of these two awesome artists that you want to learn on guitar. Guys, the first thing that you want to know to play At My Worst on guitar is that we're going to be in standard tuning and we will not need a capo to play this song. The next thing that you want to know to play At My Worst on guitar is the structure of this song. We'll start out with an intro, then we'll go to verse, then pre-chorus, then chorus. Then we'll go verse, pre-chorus, chorus again. Then we're going to have that same intro picking pattern, and we're going to finish up the song with one last chorus. And the last thing that you want to know before we dive into At My Worst is the 4 chords that you need to play this song. The first one is C. The next one is A minor. The next one is D minor. And the last one is G. And I'll have short chord tutorials for all of those linked in the pinned comment below for those of you who need them. And with all that in mind, guys, let's dive into At My Worst. Guys, I'm stoked to share this song with y'all. I know it's not a very new song, and there's plenty of tutorials for this song already on YouTube, but I think it's a really beautiful song, and I just heard it for the first time a couple days ago, and I knew right away I wanted to share it with you guys. So the first thing we're going to take a look at is that little intro picking pattern that plays in the intro, and it plays once before that last chorus as well. But to do that, we're going to be way up here, so let's zoom in a little bit so you can see a little better. Much better. Now, like I said, the main place we hear this little intro picking pattern is obviously in the intro, the very beginning of the song, and then we also hear it towards the end of the song, right before we go into that last chorus. And this also kind of plays below the rest of the guitar that's in the song very softly, but that's the main places that we hear this intro is in the very beginning of the song and then right before that last chorus. So this is a really simple little picking pattern, and it all is going to be on the high E string, so the very bottom string. And it's all going to be between 5th fret, which is this fret right here, 5th fret on the high E, and 13th fret on the high E, way up there. I know it may seem a little intimidating if you're a beginner, but I promise this is actually a pretty easy picking pattern. We're going to break this thing down pretty quick, but we'll make sure you have all the right stuff in all the right places before we move on. So we're going to start here with an 8th fret on the high E. We're going to pick that, and then we're going to go to 10th fret on the high E, and then back to 8th fret on the high E. That's our first little sequence right there. So that should sound super familiar if you're familiar with the song. Next sequence is going to go 8th fret on the high E, 7th, back to 8th, back to 7th, and then down to 5th. All on the high E. Second little sequence goes 8, 7, 8, 7, 5. And then the next sequence is going to go 7, 8, 10. And then we're going to go 10 again. Then 13. Then 12. Then 10. And our last note is going to be the 7th fret. Just like that. And that is only going to play through once through the intro. And I believe it plays through a couple times before that last chorus. And then again, it kind of is softly played throughout most of the song, actually, beneath the rest of the picking, which we'll get to here in a little bit. So let's put that all together and do a little walkthrough. We're going to start here on 8th fret of the high E. Again, this is all on the high E. So we're going to go 8th, 10th, 8th, 8th, 7th, 8th, 7th, 5th, 7th, 8th, 10th, 10th, 13th, 12th, 10th, 7th. Just like that. And again, that will play once through for the intro, a couple times before that last chorus of the song, and again, it really will kind of play underneath the rest of the guitar that's being played through the whole song. So ideally, if you have like a loop station or a loop pedal, you could play this and then play the rest of the picking on top of it. Or if you have 2 guitarists, you could have one guitarist playing this and one guitarist playing the other part, the chord progression that we'll get to in just a minute. So, guys, nothing too crazy here. Again, very beginner-friendly picking pattern, but I'm going to play through that a couple times very slowly so that you can make sure you have all the right stuff in all the right places. Then I'll play through it a couple times full speed so that you can match it up with the speed of the song. So slowly a couple times first through the little intro picking pattern for At My Worst will look about like this without me talking. And a couple of times full speed through that little picking pattern that plays through the intro and a couple other places in At My Worst will look about like this without me talking. From there, guys, we're into what's being played for our verses and our choruses. For our verses and our choruses, we're going to have a chord progression, and then we're going to have two different picking patterns to go along with that chord progression. Now, that probably looks more complicated than it actually is, so don't be too intimidated. This is actually pretty beginner-friendly for a finger picking pattern, so don't get scared away by that. So the first thing we'll take a look at is our chord progression. The chord progression we're going to be using for our verses and our choruses, and actually the rest of the song as well, but we'll get there in a little bit, is C, A minor, D minor, and G. And that is going to repeat through the entire song, but we're focusing on the verses and the choruses right now. So you'll notice that that D minor has a little star next to it, and that is because we're doing something a little different for the picking pattern there. We'll get there in just a minute. So before we dive into our picking patterns, there's one thing we need to make sure that we know, and that is what bass notes are. If you don't know what a bass note is, it's just the lowest note of whatever chord we're playing. So for our C chord, that's going to be on our A string. For our A minor, that's also going to be on our A string. For our D minor, that's going to be on the D string. And then for our G chord, that's going to be on the low E string. Those are all of our bass notes, and those are really important to be able to play this picking pattern. So make sure that you remember those or take a screenshot or a note of that before we move on. So with that in mind, let's learn these picking patterns. So the first picking pattern we're going to take a look at is the picking pattern we're playing for all of our non-starred chords. So everything except for the D minor will be the picking pattern I'm about to show you. So we'll start with our C chord because that's our first non-starred chord and the first chord in the progression. For all of our non-starred chords, we're going to pick the bass note, then we're going to pick G and B at the same time, and then we're going to pick the bass note again twice, and then G and B at the same time again. Just like that. And that's what we're going to play through once for all of the non-starred chords. So bass note, G and B, bass note, G and B, or a little closer to full speed. So that's what our C chord will look like. Next chord is the A minor. We're going to do the same picking pattern there. And then we're on to our D minor after that A minor. For our D minor, we're going to play a very similar picking pattern, but we're going to change up what strings we're using. So we're going to do the same thing there. We're going to pick a bass note there, which is our D string. But then after that, we're going to pick the B string and the high E string at the same time. And then bass note again, but twice. And then B and high E again. So all we're doing is we're just changing from the G and the B strings to the B and the high E strings. And that's the only chord we're doing that for. So that's our D minor, a little closer to full speed. And then we go to our G chord, which is back to the regular non-starred picking pattern. So bass note, G and B, bass note, G and B, or a little closer to full speed. And that's the whole thing. That's what we're going to repeat through all of our verses and our choruses, except for that last starred chorus, which we'll get to in just a minute. So one more little walkthrough of that whole thing together is about like this. Start with our C chord. We'll go bass note, G and B, bass note, G and B, A minor, bass note, G and B, bass note, G and B, D minor, bass note, B and E, bass note, B and E, G, bass note, G and B, bass note, G and B. Just about like that, but obviously a little bit quicker, and then that'll repeat through all of our verses and all of our choruses except for the very last chorus. So same thing here, guys. I'm going to play through that a couple of times very slowly so that you can make sure you have all the right stuff in all the right places. Then I'll play through it a couple of times full speed so you can match it up with the speed of the song. So slowly a couple of times first through the picking pattern that's going to play through all of the verses and the choruses on At My Worst will look about like this without me talking. a couple of times full speed through the chord progression and the picking patterns that are going to repeat through all of the verses and the choruses on At My Worst will look about like this without me talking. And guys, finally, the last thing that you need to know to play At My Worst on guitar is what we're playing for our pre-choruses and the very last chorus of the song. Now, again, I mentioned this earlier, but we're going to have the same chord progression through the whole song. So for our pre-choruses and that last chorus, we'll use that same chord progression that we were already using. So we'll have C, A minor, D minor, and G. And you might already be able to tell if you're familiar with the song, but for our pre-choruses and that last chorus of the song, we're just going to do a single down strum for each one of those chords. So this is really simple. Most of you guys will already have no problem with playing single down strums, especially if you've made it this far in this tutorial. But just a little quick walkthrough of what that'll look like is about like this. We'll start with that C chord. We'll go down, 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 down. And I believe that just plays through once for each pre-chorus, and then it'll just repeat throughout the last chorus of the song. So nothing too crazy here, guys. Again, if you've made it this far, you'll have no problem with this because it is just single down strums and a very simple chord progression. But a couple times through that chord progression with that single down strum pattern that's going to repeat through all the pre-choruses, and the last chorus of At My Worst will look about like this without me talking. And guys, that is everything that you need to know to play At My Worst on guitar. As always, if you have any questions, you can hit me up in the comments down below. I'm usually pretty quick getting back to those. And again, if this video helps you out, hit that subscribe button. I have about 850 other guitar and ukulele lessons on this channel, and I usually try to post at least 3 to 5 new lessons every single week. So if you're learning guitar or ukulele, there cannot be a more perfect channel for you to check out. If you want to get a sneak peek of what songs I'm working on next, be sure to hit up my Instagram at @thegroovyguitardude. And lastly, guys, if you want to support the channel and get your name in the credits at the end of each new guitar tutorial, you can hit up my Patreon at patreon.com/thegroovyguitardude. Link for that will be in the description below as well. Guys, At My Worst came out a while back ago, but I actually just heard it for the first time a couple days ago, and as soon as I heard this song, I knew I had to share it with you guys because it's just a beautiful song. I'm such a sucker for like cheesy romantic kind of songs like this, and I love the guitar in this song as well. That kind of finger picking pattern where it's just a simple chord progression, but you finger pick through the chord progression. That's actually one of my favorite styles of playing, and my favorite song to play, Begin Again by Taylor Swift, is that same kind of thing. It's a picking pattern that is just based within a chord progression. And I love songs like that. They're a lot of fun to play. They're really easy to play in terms of a finger picking song. So this is actually a great song for beginners, even if you haven't done a lot of finger picking before, because really it's repetitive. It plays through the same thing, same chord progressions, same picking patterns through most of the song. So if you're a beginner, that's great because you don't have to really get a whole bunch of different stuff down. You kind of just have to get that chord progression and those two picking patterns down, and then you can play the whole entire song. And I love songs like that for beginners, and I even love to play them as a little bit more of an advanced to intermediate or intermediate to advanced guitarist as well, because they're just fun to play. And again, this song lyrically, melodically, just everything about it is very beautiful, very cheesy and romantic, and I'm just a sucker for that kind of music. So guys, I had a lot of fun learning this song. I hope you guys have a lot of fun learning as well, and hope you have a wonderful day. I'll see y'all soon.